It doesn't begin with anger. It begins with the silence that follows it. A silence so heavy it presses against the chest of the guilty. Because silence has no tone, no defense, no weakness. It's the moment when the person they thought they controlled no longer reacts, no longer explains, no longer plays the game. They expected chaos. They expected begging, tears, proof that they still mattered. But instead, you vanished, calm, composed, unreadable, and that stillness became the loudest sound they've ever heard. Each day they replay your last words. Each night they wonder if you're gone for good. That's when silence becomes the mirror they can't escape, forcing them to face every lie, every manipulation, every part of themselves they used to hide behind your attention. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that's what your silence proves. You are no longer controlled by emotion, you are powered by it. So before we go deeper, I want you to drop this below. Type 1 if you've ever used silence to regain your power, or 2 if you're ready to learn how. Hit subscribe to Stoic Silence and start this journey now, because what happens next will show you why silence breaks them faster than any words ever could. On the real meaning of silence. They thought your silence was a retreat, a quiet surrender, a sign you had nothing left to say. But silence was never your retreat. It was your rebirth. It was the moment you stopped explaining and started evolving. The moment you realized you no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. They mistook your stillness for weakness, but in truth, it was strength taking shape. Strength that no longer needed noise to be recognized. Silence isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of transformation. It's where the storm inside you settles and clarity takes its place. Every person who's ever risen from pain first walked through a season of quiet, not to escape the world, but to rebuild themselves beyond it. That's what your silence became. The unseen forge where your patience hardened into discipline, where your heartbreak turned into wisdom, and where your chaos gave birth to peace. You weren't retreating, you were reclaiming. Every time you chose to say nothing, you were rewriting your identity. Every time you walked away from noise, you were walking closer to power. Because silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of control. It's the mark of someone who no longer reacts, only responds with purpose. And when the world finally hears from you again, they'll realize the truth too late. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of your return, the beginning of your rise, the rebirth of your power, the calm before the transformation that no one saw coming. 2. Stepping away from the noise. There comes a moment when the noise around you becomes unbearable. The arguments, the expectations, the endless need to be understood. You reach a point where words no longer heal, they only drain. That's when you decide to step away, not out of anger, not out of defeat, but out of clarity. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do for your peace is to walk into silence. It's in that quiet distance that you return to yourself. You begin to realize that your power was never in convincing others. It was always in mastering your own reactions. When you stop explaining, when you stop defending, when you stop hoping they'll finally understand you, something shifts inside. The world grows silent, but your mind grows louder. For the first time, you can hear what was drowned out by chaos all along, your own voice, your own truth, your own strength. In silence, you start to rebuild what noise destroyed. Your focus, your self-worth, your direction. You remember who you were before their opinions became your prison. You see how much energy you wasted trying to be heard by those who were never listening. And as you pull back, the peace you once chased starts finding you on its own. Stepping away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the art of choosing peace over noise, truth over validation. Because once you return to yourself, you realize you never needed their understanding. You only needed your own. And that realization is where real power begins. The quiet kind that can't be shaken, only felt. 3. The world and its noise. The world will always tell you to speak louder, to fight for closure, to demand answers, to prove your worth. They'll say silence means surrender, that if you don't fight to be heard, you'll be forgotten. But that's the lie of a world addicted to noise. The truth is, the loudest voice isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the man who says nothing holds more power than the one who argues to be right. The wise know this. They understand that what's truly meant for you never needs to be chased, begged for, or explained. It finds its way to you when you're calm, not when you're desperate. Because desperation blinds you, but stillness reveals what's real. You can't see your reflection in stormy water, only when it's still. The same goes for your life. The moment you stop forcing outcomes, you begin to attract what aligns with your peace. There's freedom in not reacting to every noise that calls your name. You stop giving energy to things that don't grow you. You stop trying to prove your value to those who already decided to overlook it. And when the world shouts for chaos, you respond with composure. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that peace is the highest form of strength. So let the world make noise. Let them misunderstand your calm. Because what's truly meant for you will never require you to beg. It will arrive quietly, the same way peace always does, when you stop chasing and start trusting. That's when everything finally begins to find its way back to you. 4. The wisdom of stillness. The world often mistakes stillness for weakness. They think that if you're not reacting, not fighting, not proving, you've already lost. But the truth is, stillness isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. It's the art of holding your peace while everything around you tries to provoke chaos. It's the quiet discipline of a mind that refuses to be dragged into noise. Because real strength doesn't shout. It observes. It waits. It moves only when it must. The loudest victories are always fought in silence. The greatest transformations happen without witnesses. The strongest men rebuild not through noise, but through peace. They don't announce their comeback. They become it. In stillness, they sharpen their minds, heal their hearts, and rise from the inside out. There's no applause, no validation, no stage. Just quiet progress. Just inner evolution. Stillness is what separates those who react from those who rule. It's the pause between the impulse and the response, the sacred space where wisdom is born. While others exhaust themselves proving their worth to the world, the wise conserve their energy for creation, not confrontation. And when they finally move, they move with precision. Because what was built in silence doesn't need to be defended. It speaks for itself. So stay still, stay grounded, stay focused. The storm will always be loud, but the man who remains calm through it becomes the storm's lesson. 5. The power of being misunderstood. There's a rare kind of strength in being misunderstood, a quiet power that only the calm can hold. Most people rush to explain themselves, to fix the narrative, to prove their intentions. But when you no longer feel the need to be understood, you've already risen above the need for approval. The next time someone mistakes your silence for weakness, let them. Their confusion is their punishment, and their assumptions are the walls of their own prison. People fear what they cannot define. When they don't know what you're thinking, when they can't predict your next move, their mind begins to work against them. That's where your power lives, in the mystery. Their imagination becomes your ally. While they're busy analyzing your absence, you're busy mastering your direction. You've stopped reacting to the story they tell about you and started writing the one they'll never forget. You don't need to correct every misconception. Time will do that for you. What you build in silence, what you become in solitude, will speak louder than anything you could ever say. The wise understand that silence is a mirror. It reflects the insecurities of others while protecting your peace. So stay still, stay focused, stay unbothered. Let them misunderstand, because in the end, their noise will fade, but your results won't. And when you finally reappear, the same silence they doubted will be the reason they can't stop watching. 6. The freedom in not explaining. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight to be free. You don't have to explain to be understood. The need to explain is what once kept you chained to their opinions, to their approval, to their understanding of you. You used to believe that clarity would earn you peace, that if they just saw your side, things would make sense. But the truth is, peace was never found in convincing others. It was found in no longer needing to. Freedom begins the moment you stop defending your worth. When you no longer chase validation or argue for understanding, you take back your power. Because explanation is often a silent plea, a hidden hope that they'll finally see your heart. But the wise know that the right people never need explanations, and the wrong ones will twist them anyway. So you stop talking, you stop proving, you stop performing, and in that stillness you become untouchable. Your quiet presence now carries more authority than any speech could. It says, "I know who I am, even if you never do." It says, "I don't need your permission to be at peace." You begin to live on your own frequency, calm, grounded, free. The same silence they once mocked becomes the boundary they can't cross. You've broken the chains by refusing to justify your existence, and now your silence speaks for you, not as submission, but as sovereignty. Because true freedom isn't about being understood by others, it's about finally understanding yourself. 7. The language of peace. Silence speaks in ways words never can. It speaks through presence, through composure, through the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to prove their worth. In a world obsessed with noise, your calm becomes its own language, one that only the grounded can understand. Because silence doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't fight to be right. It simply stands unshaken and lets truth reveal itself over time. When you choose stillness, you communicate something powerful, that you are no longer ruled by emotion, that you've made peace with what is. Every second you remain still is proof that you've won the battle within, the one between reaction and restraint, between ego and awareness. You no longer seek control over others because you've mastered control over yourself. That's the quiet victory most will never see, but everyone will feel. The one who conquers himself never has to prove anything to anyone again. His calm unnerves those who live in chaos because it exposes their lack of it. His silence becomes the mirror that reveals the noise within others. You've reached a place where peace is no longer a goal, it's your nature. Where calm isn't weakness, it's command. So let your silence speak. Let it echo with clarity, control, and peace. Because the world may shout, accuse, or misunderstand, but it can't touch someone who's already found stillness inside. That's the language of peace, wordless, powerful, unbreakable. And when you speak it, you no longer need to be heard to be understood. You simply are. 8. The new chapter begins. Every story has a moment when the noise fades, when the need to explain dissolves, and what's left is stillness, not the kind that hides, but the kind that transforms. Your silence is not absence, It's your signature. It's the sound of discipline, the rhythm of evolution. It's the quiet declaration that you are no longer driven by reaction, but guided by intention. The world may not notice the day you choose calm over chaos, but that single decision marks the beginning of your rise. This is where the new chapter begins, not with noise, not with revenge, but with peace. You no longer need to prove yourself to the world that misunderstood you. You no longer chase validation from those who only saw fragments of who you were. You have stopped performing for approval and started building in silence. Because real evolution doesn't happen under a spotlight. It happens behind closed doors, when no one's watching, when you're fighting your inner battles with patience instead of pride. Discipline becomes your new voice. It's in the way you wake up with purpose, in the way you protect your energy, in the way you refuse to let anyone disturb your peace. Your silence becomes the sound of progress. Every quiet morning you train, every night you reflect, every day you choose focus over distraction. You're becoming the person they never believed you could be, not because you argued louder, but because you worked in stillness. The rhythm of your evolution is subtle but unstoppable. You are no longer reacting to pain. You are creating from it. The same silence they once mocked has now become the foundation of your strength. You have learned that peace is not something to chase. It's something to build, to defend, to live by. You've outgrown the need to be seen, because now your results will speak louder than your explanations ever could. So keep walking in calm, keep building in quiet, keep rising in peace. The path of silence is not easy. It's lonely, it's demanding, and it requires you to trust timing more than emotion. But that's where transformation happens. In the waiting, in the stillness, in the moments no one claps for you, yet you keep moving forward anyway. Because while they're still watching, wondering, doubting, you're becoming something they can no longer reach. Your silence has turned into your identity, steady, unbothered, grounded. The same calm they feared losing has become the peace you now protect. You don't compete with noise anymore. You outgrow it. You don't explain your journey. You live it. And every step you take in silence adds another page to your story, a story of discipline, self-respect, and rebirth. Because while they still fear your silence, you've learned to love your peace. And that's the ultimate transformation. When your silence no longer feels like distance, but freedom. When you stop trying to be understood and start being whole. This is your new chapter. One written not with words, but with calm strength, steady purpose, and unshakable peace. Your silence is no longer the pause between endings. It's the sound of everything beginning again. Men, here's the truth. Silence is not weakness. It's strategy. It's control. It's the quiet space where a man rebuilds himself after being misunderstood, rejected, or betrayed. Too many of you think that if you're not speaking, you're losing. But real strength is not in noise. It's in composure. When you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. When you stop explaining, you stop giving away your power. Silence isn't about withdrawal, it's about evolution. Every man reaches that breaking point, when the noise becomes unbearable, when the constant need to defend yourself drains every ounce of peace you have left. That's the moment you step away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, because a man who can't walk away can't lead himself. In silence, you begin to see what words never could: clarity, truth, and direction. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You realize that your worth doesn't need an audience. The world will tell you to shout louder, to fight harder, to demand respect. But the wise man knows what's meant for him doesn't need to be chased. It meets him when he's calm. Stillness isn't inaction. It's the highest form of discipline. You rebuild in quiet. You rise without witnesses. You let your silence do the talking, because results will speak louder than any justification ever could. So, to every man listening, stop explaining. Stop trying to convince people who already decided not to understand you. Your silence is your signature. It's the sound of discipline, the rhythm of evolution. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay untouchable, because the moment you learn to love your peace more than their attention, that's when your true power begins. Maybe you've felt it lately. The pull to go quiet, to pull back, to stop explaining yourself to people who never really listened. Maybe you've started to notice that silence feels different now. It doesn't feel like defeat anymore. It feels like freedom. That's not you giving up. That's you waking up. Every time you choose stillness over reaction, every time you choose calm over chaos, you're stepping closer to becoming the man you were meant to be. The world may not understand it yet, but they will, because silence always speaks, eventually. So ask yourself, have you seen these signs in your own life? Have you felt that shift from noise to peace, from needing to be heard to no longer caring who listens? If you have, you're already on the path. Drop your thoughts or reflections below. I want to hear where you are in your journey. And if this message hits something deep inside you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Stoic Silence, like this video, and stay with me. Because what's coming next will take you even further on this path of power, peace, and purpose. Together, we're not chasing validation, we're mastering control. We're not begging for understanding, we're building strength in silence. This isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your rise.